He was always there, and no one ever really saw him. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe if you love meaningful stories, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I really enjoy seeing where these stories travel. The diner opened at 6:30 every morning, but he didn't show up until 7:05. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. Like clockwork, like he was syncing his life to something only he could hear. The door would creak open, the little bell would chime, and there he'd be. Same coat, same quiet eyes, same slow shuffle to the booth in the far corner. Booth 9, right by the jukebox that hadn't worked properly since 2011. He sat alone, always alone. Nobody paid him much attention, maybe because he never asked for it, maybe because the world had long since gotten used to tuning out the quiet ones. He didn't complain when a kid spilled orange juice that splashed onto his shoe. He didn't correct the waitress when she brought his eggs scrambled instead of over medium. He just smiled a little, the kind of smile that didn't need to go anywhere, and ate what was in front of him. 2 eggs, dry wheat toast, 1 cup of coffee, no cream, no sugar, no refill. He never stayed long. 20 minutes, tops. Then he'd slide a neatly folded dollar bill under the edge of the plate, gather his coat, and head back out through the same door. No fuss, no waves, no words unless someone spoke first, and even then, just a nod or a polite thank you. The staff called him Mr. Quiet. They didn't know his name. None of the regulars did either. He'd become a fixture, like the crooked ceiling fan above booth 4 or the flickering neon sign in the window. He was part of the scenery, background. Sometimes the newer waitresses asked about him. "Does he come in often?" they'd whisper behind the counter. "Every day," someone would say. "He always sit there?" "Yep." "Ever talk?" "Nope." And that would be that. No one thought to ask more. Not because they didn't care, necessarily. It's just that when someone doesn't ask for anything, you start to think they don't need anything. That's the mistake, though. Quiet doesn't mean okay. Silence doesn't mean full. The truth was, he had been coming there for almost a year. Rain, shine, holidays. Even on the day the power went out and they could only serve cold cereal and coffee, made from the backup generator, he came. Sat at his booth, drank his coffee, left his tip, and no one ever asked his name. He didn't wear a wedding ring, didn't carry a phone, wore the same jacket most days, a brown corduroy thing with frayed sleeves and a tear under the left pocket. His shoes were old, comfortable looking, but worn. He walked with a slight limp, like maybe one knee gave him trouble, but it didn't slow him down. He moved with purpose. Quiet purpose, but purpose just the same. Sometimes he'd glance out the window while he ate, like he was watching for something, or someone. But nothing ever seemed to change out there, and he never looked disappointed. Just steady. Kids would run past his table without noticing him, parents chasing after them, apologizing to each other, never to him. Teenagers would laugh too loud near the jukebox. One time, a young man took a call on speakerphone just 2 booths over. Mr. Quiet didn't flinch, didn't look up, just sipped his coffee, slow and thoughtful. People said the same things about him when they talked at all. He seems nice, polite, doesn't bother anyone. And that was the extent of their noticing. But he noticed them. Every laugh, every sigh, every spilled drink, and burnt toast. He saw the waitress rub her feet when she thought no one was looking. Saw the cook slump against the counter between orders. Saw the teenage dishwasher slip a cookie into his backpack before heading out. He never said a word, but he saw it all. And then, one morning, the door didn't open at 7:05. The booth stayed empty. The jukebox stayed quiet. And for the first time, someone noticed what wasn't there. It took 3 days before anyone really said anything. At first, it was just a passing thought, the kind that brushes against your mind and slips away before you have time to hold on to it. Someone sat at the corner booth and said, "Huh, that guy's not here today," But the pancakes were getting cold and the baby was fussing, so the thought got lost under napkins and noise. The next morning, booth 9 was empty again. Still no old man. Still no coffee, no toast, no quiet nod of thanks. The seat looked strange without him. Too clean, too open, like a puzzle missing its centerpiece. But the breakfast rush was in full swing, and no one had time to dwell on it. Orders were called out, plates clattered, a kid spilled syrup. Life moved forward, like it always did. On the third day, it was Lisa, the waitress with the auburn braid and tired eyes, who paused while setting silverware at booth 9. She stood there for a moment, just looking at the empty seat. Her hands didn't move. "Has anyone seen the quiet guy lately?" she asked. Not loudly, not to anyone in particular. The question floated over the counter like steam from a fresh pot of coffee. A few heads turned. The cook, Greg, glanced up from the grill. The dishwasher peeked around the corner, dish rag in hand. For a moment the clatter slowed. "No," someone answered. "Not since Monday." Lisa frowned. She didn't say anything right away. She just finished laying the silverware, then straightened the napkin holder like it mattered more than it did. Greg flipped a pancake and said, "Maybe he's out of town. Got family or something." "No family," Lisa said quietly. "He always sat alone." Someone else chimed in from the counter, an older woman with a crossword in front of her. "Maybe he's just taking a break. People disappear for a while." Lisa nodded, but the frown didn't leave her face. That day, the booth stayed empty. No one sat there. Not because it was reserved, but because it felt off. Like sitting there would be interrupting something. Like if you did, you might be saying it out loud. He's not coming back. And no one wanted to say that yet. The jukebox flickered once and went dark again. No one noticed, but the silence started to stretch. It was subtle at first, the way conversations didn't flow as easily, the way the morning radio felt louder, the way the sun didn't hit the window at quite the right angle. Booth 9 had never been loud, never the center of attention, but its quiet had meant something. It had filled the space. Now, the quiet felt different. It felt like absence. On Thursday, Lisa set a coffee cup at booth 9 anyway. Just muscle memory. She stood there holding the pot for a moment, waiting for a hand that wouldn't reach out. Then she poured it anyway. "Just in case," she mumbled. Greg saw her do it and didn't say a word, just went back to flipping bacon. By Friday, even the regulars started asking, "Where's your quiet guy? He okay? He's sick or something?" Lisa didn't have answers. None of them did. No one had asked for his name, not once. They'd served him hundreds of meals, watched him sit in that same booth, sip from the same cup, leave the same folded dollar under the same chipped plate, and never once asked who he was. And now they couldn't. That night, as the diner closed up and the chairs were flipped onto the tables, Lisa walked over to booth 9 one last time. The coffee had gone cold. The seat was empty. The air felt heavy, like something had been left behind. She picked up the cup. Something white caught her eye under the sugar caddy. Just the corner of it. Cream-colored paper, folded twice. She pulled it out slowly. On the front, in careful handwriting, it said just 2 words. "To you." She stared at it, unsure. Then she called Greg over. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The note sat between them, waiting. They opened it right there at the counter, under the dim overhead light, between a salt shaker and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. Greg used the corner of his apron to smooth the crease. Lisa just watched, her arms folded tight across her chest, like something inside her was bracing. Neither of them spoke as the note unfolded, and for a long moment, neither of them breathed either. The paper was thick, good quality. The handwriting was steady, deliberate. Black ink, no smudges, just a few lines, simple, direct, and quiet, like the man who'd written them. You never asked my name. But that's okay. I came here because it felt normal, because the toast was warm and no one asked me to explain anything. You gave me a routine when my life had none. That mattered more than you know. Thank you. Walter. Lisa read it once, then again. Walter. She whispered the name out loud like it didn't quite fit yet, like it had to be said slowly to make sense of it. Greg leaned back against the counter, rubbing the back of his neck like something inside him had cracked open a little. For a while, they didn't move. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space where words couldn't. Eventually, Lisa folded the paper again, careful this time. She didn't press the crease. She just tucked it in her apron pocket and stared out the front window like she might see him walking by. He left it for us, she said quietly. Yeah, Greg said. Guess he figured we'd notice. Lisa nodded. Eventually. They didn't close the diner on time that night. Not really. The last customer had left 20 minutes before, but no one flipped the sign. No one locked the door. Lisa wiped down the counter again. Greg scrubbed the grill even though it was already clean. Everything felt off balance. They didn't know anything else about him. Not his last name. Not where he lived. Not how old he was, though Greg guessed somewhere in his 70s. Not why he limped. Not where he went after that toast and coffee. Not if he had kids, or a past, or a favorite song. They knew he liked his eggs over medium. That he always tipped $1. That he never asked for a refill. That he wore the same coat every day, even in July. And now they knew his name was Walter. It felt like they should have known more. The next morning, Lisa brought the note back and pinned it behind the register, just above the takeout menus and a coupon for 10% off on Wednesdays. She didn't ask permission. Greg didn't say a word about it. No one did, but they all read it. Every single one of them. The dishwasher stood there with damp gloves and read it twice. The new hostess read it and blinked more than usual. The morning cook, who never said much, stared at it longer than expected. Customers started noticing, too. Who's Walter? Was he someone special? Did he used to work here? Lisa would smile, soft and a little sad. He used to sit in that booth, she'd say, pointing to the far corner. And then she'd leave it at that. Some people nodded, some asked more questions, some didn't say anything at all but lingered near the booth, like maybe sitting there might give them answers. The jukebox next to booth 9 flickered to life on Saturday morning for the first time in months. No one touched it. It just started playing, low and scratchy. A song no one could name, something slow, with a piano and a voice that didn't rush. Lisa looked over at Greg. You think he picked that? She asked. Greg didn't smile, just nodded once, eyes still on the booth. And for the first time in days, the silence didn't feel so heavy. It was Lisa who finally asked the question out loud. Do you think he meant for us to find it? She was standing by the front window, coffee in hand, watching a delivery truck idle at the light across the street. Greg was behind the counter stacking paper cups. The morning rush had come and gone, and the diner had settled into its usual mid-morning lull. Half-full coffee pots, empty booths, the distant clink of silverware from the back. Greg didn't look up. Yeah, he said. I think he did. She turned, leaned against the edge of the window, and let the coffee warm her fingers. I keep thinking about that line, because the toast was warm and no one asked me to explain anything. Greg shrugged. Sounds like a man who'd had enough explaining to last a lifetime. She nodded slowly. Or maybe just someone who missed being invisible without feeling forgotten. They didn't talk about it more than that, but the note stayed where it was, pinned behind the register like a secret they'd agreed to share. Every so often someone would pause, lean in, read it carefully, then go back to their coffee a little quieter than before. By the end of the week, the tone of the place had started to shift. It wasn't big, just small things. The way the cook started greeting people by name, even when he didn't have to. The way the teenage hostess stopped checking her phone long enough to ask customers how their morning was going. Lisa even caught herself asking a regular if he was still taking care of his mother. She hadn't planned to. The question just came out. People noticed. One woman said, "Feels different in here lately." Another said, "It's like the place has a softer kind of quiet now." No one mentioned Walter directly, but he was there. In the booth, they didn't seat anymore. In the dollar bill, someone started tucking under their plate, folded the same way he used to. In the song that kept playing from the jukebox on random mornings, always that same one. Slow, soft, unnamed. On Friday, a man in a blue windbreaker walked in, ordered a coffee, and stood staring at the note for a long time. Lisa watched him from the far end of the counter. He didn't blink much, didn't touch his drink. Finally, he asked, "You mind if I ask who that is?" Lisa walked over. "His name was Walter. He used to sit in that booth over there, every day, same time." The man nodded. "I think I knew him. Lived across the hall from my aunt. Kept to himself mostly. Used to sit on the stoop and feed the birds." Lisa didn't know what to say to that. Somehow it made sense. Walter and birds. "Wasn't he sick?" the man asked. "We don't know," Lisa said. "He just stopped coming." The man looked at the booth again. He always seemed like the kind of guy who didn't want to be noticed. Funny how he got remembered anyway. He left a few minutes later, didn't finish his coffee, left a 5 under the cup with the bill still unpaid. Lisa didn't take it to the register. She folded the bill slowly and slid it under the edge of a napkin at booth 9. That night, after close, Greg found it there. He left it where it was. By Saturday, more people had started leaving things. A folded receipt with a thank you written on the back. A drawing from a child. Stick figures. One sitting at a booth. A bookmark. A single peppermint. No one said who they were from. No one claimed the space. It just became a place to leave things that didn't have anywhere else to go. Greg said nothing. Lisa said even less. But on Monday morning, she brought in a small wooden frame. Inside was a typed version of the note, centered on cream-colored paper. "You never asked my name. But that's okay." She placed it gently at the center of booth 9, right where his plate used to sit. Then she stepped back, looked at it once, and nodded. No music played. No one clapped. But the booth didn't feel empty anymore. By Tuesday, the story started to spread. Not because someone told it loudly, not because it was posted online, just because someone had read the note, felt something shift, and then told someone else. A man in a navy peacoat asked if he could sit at booth 9. Lisa told him gently, "We're leaving it open for someone." He didn't ask who, just nodded, chose another seat, and left $1 folded small under his saucer when he went. Greg found a handwritten envelope taped to the diner's door the next morning. It wasn't addressed to anyone. Inside was a short note. "I read about the man in your window. My dad was like that. Quiet, routine, said very little, but he felt deeply." I think there are more Walters than we know. There was no name, no return address, just the folded paper and a small photograph tucked inside. An old man sitting on a porch with a cat in his lap, mid-laugh, looking like someone had told him a joke he'd heard before, but still loved anyway. Lisa added it to the frame. The notes kept coming. Some left on the table, some slipped under the door, some simply spoken aloud and then gone. One woman came in during the lunch lull, ordered a black coffee, and sat near booth 9 in silence for nearly an hour. When she stood to leave, she told Lisa quietly, "I lost my dad last year. He used to take me out for pancakes every Saturday. This feels like that." Then she left, her table untouched, her bill unpaid, a small white daisy resting gently in the center of her plate. Lisa didn't clear it until closing. It didn't take long for the staff to stop referring to him as the old guy. They said his name now, softly, respectfully. "Walter." Customers said it too, not often, but when they did, it didn't feel strange. It felt like something that had always been there, like finally naming a melody you've been humming without knowing why. The cook started asking people how they liked their eggs, even when they didn't ask for specifics. Lisa began pouring coffee before being waved down. A regular who'd never tipped more than coins left a $10 bill under his plate and said, "That's for the man in the coat. I don't know him, but I think he knew us." The jukebox played the same song again on Thursday. No one had touched it. Greg finally walked over to check the machine, see if maybe it was on some kind of timer, some leftover setting no one remembered. But it wasn't plugged in. The cord hung loose behind the booth. Dust gathered where it met the floor. Greg stood there for a long minute, then walked back to the kitchen without saying a word. He turned the grill off, even though it wasn't time yet. That afternoon, a woman came in with a toddler. She looked tired, worn out in a way that went past sleep. She pointed toward booth 9, and Lisa shook her head gently. "That one's taken," she said. The woman looked confused. "I don't see anyone there." Lisa smiled. "Doesn't mean it's not taken." The woman hesitated, then nodded. She sat 2 booths over. The toddler babbled something about toast. Lisa brought it with a smile. Later, as she was leaving, the woman stopped at the counter. "What's the story with that booth?" she asked. Lisa thought for a moment, then said, "A man used to sit there every day. He didn't say much, but after he stopped coming, we found a note. He said we gave him something steady." The woman looked back at the booth. "That's rare," she said. "Yes," Lisa agreed. "It is." She left without ordering anything else, but she placed a folded napkin on booth 9 before she went. Just one word written on it in crayon. Peace. That evening, Greg didn't turn off the lights right away. The diner sat in its quiet glow, empty except for the scent of bacon grease and the soft buzz of the refrigerator. Lisa stood in front of the booth for a long while. "I think he's still here," she said. Greg didn't look up from the sink. "I think we're finally listening," he said. It was the little things that started to change first. Lisa noticed it when she caught herself folding napkins slower. Not because she was tired, but because she was paying attention, making the corners neat, pressing them down just right, like maybe someone quiet was watching and it mattered. Greg noticed it when he realized the grill was cleaner than usual, not because he'd scrubbed harder, but because he'd started wiping it down between orders, like he wanted the space to reflect the care that lived there now. They didn't say it out loud, but everyone felt it. Something had settled into the bones of the diner. Not heavy, not sad, just present. Like Walter had left a coat hanging on the back of a chair, and everyone agreed to leave it there. The note behind the counter was still pinned in place, still neat, still framed. But now there were others, taped beside it, tucked under the edge, layered like memories. One from a woman who wrote, "Thank you for making quiet feel less lonely." Another, scribbled in pencil, said, "I used to eat alone here and think it meant I didn't belong. Not anymore." There was even one in a child's handwriting. "I like your booth. I hope you're okay." No one signed them. No one had to. Booth 9 had become something different. Not a shrine, not a memorial. Just a soft corner of the world where people were allowed to feel something without explaining why. No expectations, no noise, just space. One morning, a high school teacher came in during her planning hour, sat at the counter with a latte, and stared at the notes behind the register. She asked Lisa how it all started. Lisa told her about the man in the coat, the eggs, the $1 tips, the silence that followed, the note that changed everything. The teacher nodded. She said she had a student like that once, quiet, punctual, never turned in late work, slipped through the cracks, even while sitting in the front row. "I never knew how much I missed him until he transferred out," she said. Then the seat felt empty in a way that wasn't just physical. Lisa understood. She offered the woman a refill and didn't charge her. Later that week, someone brought in a small card table and set it outside the diner's front window. A cardboard sign taped to it read, "Letters to Walter. Leave one, read one. Say what you didn't say in time." No one claimed responsibility, but within a few days the table was full. Some letters were long, stories about fathers and brothers and people who didn't talk much but mattered more than anyone knew. Others were short, just a single sentence written in shaky pen or looping cursive. "I'm sorry I never called. I wish I'd told you I noticed. You reminded me of my grandfather. He was kind like you. I see you now." People sat at the table long after they were done eating. Some didn't come in at all, just left something folded, placed it gently under a small stone to keep the wind from carrying it away. Greg didn't say much about it, just kept a stack of blank cards near the register. Lisa made sure the pens didn't run dry. One evening, after close, Lisa stayed late to read a few. Greg watched her from the kitchen doorway. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, eyes still on the paper in her hands. "I think people needed somewhere to say things that didn't have a place before." He leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Funny how one person can do that just by sitting still," he said. Lisa smiled. He didn't say much, but he made space for everyone else to. They didn't speak after that, just cleaned up, turned off the lights, locked the doors. The next morning, someone had placed a single yellow flower in the center of booth 9. No note, no signature, just the flower. Lisa left it there all day. No one touched it. No one questioned it. Some things didn't need explaining anymore. By the second week of April, the story reached the local paper. A small piece, just a column tucked between the city council update and a coupon for lawn fertilizer. But it was enough. A photo of the diner. A headline that read, "The Quiet Man in Booth 9. How one note changed a town's favorite breakfast spot. Inside, a few paragraphs about Walter, about the note, about the table of letters outside and the little frame above the register. Nothing dramatic, just the truth. That's what made it powerful. People started coming in because of it, not in droves, not to take pictures or post about it, just quietly, with a kind of reverence, like they were visiting something sacred that didn't need a plaque to matter. Lisa saw them every day, people she'd never seen before, standing near the register, reading the note slowly, carefully. Some of them nodded to her afterward, some just took a seat in silence. Some ordered toast and nothing else. Greg didn't say much about the article. He read it once, folded it in half, and tucked it into the drawer under the cash register. But he started making an extra plate of toast each morning. Just dry wheat, cut diagonal, left on the warmer. Lisa asked once who it was for. "Doesn't need to be for anyone," Greg said. But he made it anyway. Every morning. They called it Walter's plate. No one ever ate it, but it never went to waste. At the end of the shift, Lisa would wrap it in foil and leave it by the staff coffee machine in the back. Someone always claimed it. The dishwasher, the overnight janitor, the delivery guy who came in grumbling about traffic and left with a softer voice. They didn't talk about it, but they all knew. Walter had become part of the place. One afternoon, a man walked in wearing a dark suit and tie. He didn't sit, just walked straight to the counter and waited until Lisa noticed him. "You had a regular," he said. "Older guy, quiet. Name was Walter Green." Lisa nodded slowly. "We did." The man exhaled and took something out of his jacket pocket. A small envelope, cream-colored, familiar. "I'm his nephew," he said. "Found this in his apartment last week. He left it addressed to the diner. That's all it said." He handed it to Lisa. She didn't open it right away, just stared at the handwriting. It was the same, careful, steady, no smudges. The man looked around the room. "He talked about this place," he said. "Said it reminded him of how things used to be, that he didn't have to explain himself here. I always thought he was just being nostalgic. Didn't know it was real." Lisa opened the envelope with slow fingers. Inside was a letter, folded once. "To whoever finds this, thank you for making space for me. I know I didn't offer much in return, but I remembered your faces every day. I remembered how it felt to be part of something again, not loudly, just quietly. And that was enough." Walter Green. She read it once, then again. The man gave a soft smile. "He didn't say goodbye to anyone in the family. We thought maybe he was just tired, but now I think he just said goodbye his way." Lisa nodded. She placed the letter beside the original note behind the register, taped it carefully. No frame this time, just the paper as it was, honest and soft around the edges. The man didn't stay for coffee. He looked at booth 9, gave the seat a glance like he was seeing someone there, then left. After he was gone, Greg walked up and read the letter. Said nothing. Just went back to the grill and started another batch of toast. The next morning, someone left a newspaper clipping on booth 9. It was folded to the obituary page. Walter Green, age 76, retired schoolteacher, lover of routine. Survived by a nephew and an old cat named Lily. Someone had underlined one line in pen. He was quiet, but never unnoticed. Lisa left it there, just under the flower vase. Didn't tape it down, didn't explain it. Some things explain themselves. By the time summer rolled in, booth 9 wasn't just a seat anymore. It was a rhythm. People started timing their visits around it. Not to sit there, no one did, but just to be near it. Like sitting across from it might make the coffee taste a little warmer. Like being in its orbit made your morning feel steadier. Like something about that quiet space held the weight of everything unsaid, and somehow that made it easier to speak. The letters to Walter table out front filled up twice a week. Lisa started keeping an old shoebox behind the counter labeled "For Walter." Inside were dozens of folded notes, ticket stubs, photos, poems scribbled on napkins, and stories. So many stories. One person wrote about their father, who used to take them fishing before he stopped coming home. Another described how they'd eaten alone in the same diner for years, and now it didn't feel lonely anymore. One letter simply said, "Thank you for not needing me to be interesting to matter." People came from out of town, not a lot, not loudly, just quietly, the way Walter would have liked. A couple from 3 cities over drove 2 hours for breakfast and left a note folded like a triangle. "We found you through kindness." A nurse who worked night shifts came in after work one morning, still in scrubs. She sat near the booth, ate in silence, and left behind her hospital ID badge with a note attached. "He reminded me of a patient who never got a visitor, but always smiled when I brought him coffee." Lisa didn't ask questions anymore. She just read the notes when the diner got quiet and filed them into the shoebox. Greg added a small second shelf near the register, above the condiments. He didn't explain what it was for, but customers started leaving things there anyway. Keys that no longer matched any door, bracelets with missing beads, old pens, half-used notebooks, postcards. Each one quietly placed, left behind not for who they were from, but for who might need them. One afternoon, Lisa noticed something new. A young boy, maybe 10 years old, came in with his mom. He was carrying a small bundle wrapped in newspaper. He walked over to booth 9 without saying anything and placed it gently in the center of the table. Then he sat across from it. Didn't order, didn't fidget, just sat, legs swinging quietly beneath the seat. Lisa walked over, crouched down beside him. "Would you like something to drink?" He shook his head. "I'm okay." She glanced at the bundle. "That for Walter?" The boy nodded. "It's my grandpa's harmonica. He used to play it when I couldn't sleep. He passed away last month." Lisa placed a hand gently on the back of his chair. "It's beautiful." The boy looked at the booth, then back at her. "He was like Walter," he said. Didn't talk a lot, but I always knew when he was paying attention. Lisa smiled. Sounds like they would have gotten along. He sat there for a few more minutes, then stood. He didn't take the harmonica back. He didn't need to. Lisa left it exactly where it was. That night, when the diner closed and the chairs were lifted onto tables and the lights dimmed, Greg lingered near booth 9 longer than usual. He ran a cloth gently across the table, careful not to disturb the notes, the flower vase, or the harmonica. Then he pulled a chair over, sat down, and poured himself a cup of coffee. The room was still. The jukebox hadn't played that song in days. He didn't mind. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a scrap of paper. He didn't write much, just a sentence. Thanks for reminding me that quiet things still matter. He folded it, placed it under the salt shaker, and sat back with his coffee. No rush. When Lisa came out to check on him, she didn't speak, just looked at the note, then at Greg. You never left one before, she said. He looked at the booth, at the small collection of quiet treasures left behind by strangers and friends alike. I didn't know what to say, he said. Lisa nodded. You just did. They didn't turn off the lights for a while after that. Some places close when the door locks. But booth 9 never really did. The mornings came quieter now, not because there were fewer people, but because there was more listening. By the time the 1-year mark approached, booth 9 had become as much a part of the diner as the coffee pots or the squeaky front door. No one ever sat there. Even the new hires understood instinctively. It wasn't a rule. It was a rhythm, a space held open, like a breath no one wanted to let go of. Lisa arrived early that Sunday, earlier than usual. She unlocked the door while the sky was still soft and blue, the kind of light that made the windows glow from the inside out. Greg was already in the kitchen. He didn't say anything when she walked in, just slid her a fresh cup of coffee and nodded toward the booth. The vase on the table was full. Someone had been there before them. A bundle of wildflowers wrapped in twine. Tucked among them was a folded napkin with handwriting Lisa recognized from months ago. Still thinking of you, old friend. She didn't need to ask who left it. She just smiled and adjusted the vase so it faced the sunlight. At 9 a.m. sharp, the first guests arrived. They didn't come with cameras or speeches. They came with toast orders and folded letters. One man brought a small framed photo. Walter, sitting on the diner steps, coffee in hand, his face caught mid-laugh. The photo was old. Greg stared at it a long time before nodding once and placing it at the center of the shelf above the register. Lisa added a small card beneath it. Walter Green. Always here, just quieter now. People called it Walter's Hour. From 9 to 10, every March 14th, coffee was free. No signs, no announcements, just quiet kindness moving from booth to booth. People brought muffins to share. A teenager handed out little paper bookmarks with the quote, "You reminded me that quiet matters." A woman who'd never spoken more than 3 words in the diner recited a poem she'd written about an empty seat and a full heart. No one interrupted, no one filmed, they just listened. At one point, a little girl, maybe 6, maybe 7, wandered up to booth 9. She had pigtails and a stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She stared at the harmonica on the table, then gently touched it with one finger. Her mother came up behind her, reached out to guide her away. But Greg, wiping down the counter, said softly, "Let her be." The girl sat down across from the harmonica and hummed a quiet tune, like it was a lullaby only she and Walter knew. When she was done, she left a sticker on the table, a gold star. Greg didn't move it. As the hour went on, the booth filled, not with people, but with memory. A bookmark, a pressed leaf, a worn-out copy of a book on kindness, a coffee sleeve with the words, "I see you," written in marker. Lisa stood by the counter, watching it all unfold. She didn't cry, but her hands were still. Greg stood next to her, arms folded. He'd hate all this attention, he said, almost smiling. Lisa nodded. Probably, but I think he'd sit back there, she pointed toward the corner stool by the kitchen, and listen to every word. Greg leaned against the register. It's strange, he said. I never thought someone could become more present after they were gone. Lisa looked out across the diner, at the conversations, the stillness, the way people sat a little longer, listened a little closer. I think he just reminded us to look, she said. By noon, the booth was quiet again. Just the harmonica, the flowers, a note written in red ink. I came here to forget. You reminded me to remember. As Lisa cleared plates and refilled mugs, she caught herself glancing toward the booth again and again, not out of habit, but something else. Gratitude. She poured herself a fresh cup before the late rush and stood at the end of the counter, watching the light shift across the floor. You know, she said to Greg, he never told us anything about himself. Greg wiped his hands on a towel. Didn't need to. She nodded slowly. He gave us everything we didn't know we needed. The bell above the door jingled as someone new stepped inside. A man with tired eyes and careful steps. He looked around, unsure, then settled into a booth near the back. Lisa brought him a menu and a cup of coffee before he asked. He looked surprised. How'd you know I wanted one? She smiled. Sometimes you just know. Outside, the wind shifted the leaves across the sidewalk. Inside, booth 9 stayed full, even without a single soul in it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy meaningful stories like this, we'd love to have you as a subscriber.